We have 2 hours to fill today. Just going to be honest right up front. We are both completely exhausted. We've been running on empty for a number of weeks now, getting ready for various big events coming up, all in the next week or so, as well as maintaining our busiest month so far at the guest house and all kinds of spring preparations. So we are basically running a little bit ragged right now. We haven't had a day off in a while. But we are happy to be here with you all. We've written some notes for today to go over. So as we've done with the past few live streams, we're still sort of testing out this format where we start out our 2-hour live stream with talking about what we've done over the past month and what we have to look forward to over the next month until our next live stream. And then as questions come in, we'll answer the questions on any topic. So we've got the chat going here, and we'll answer any questions as they come in. Any topic is okay. We don't have to stay on the topic of the month.
Hey, we got 3 people now.
All right.
Is one of them my computer?
Welcome. And then after we go over that, the second hour, we'll sort of move into our main topic. This month, we have just a loose topic of renovation. We have some updates that we have read online about the changes to building renovation requirements that we can talk about. And then Evan has some DIY renovation things that he wants to talk about this month. But again, any questions on any topic are always welcome. And actually, I think we sort of prefer answering questions. Not only is that helpful for you, but I found myself referring a lot of people to these live streams because I get a lot of emails from people, and I love getting emails from people, but many of them are asking the same questions. So I answer their questions in the email and then say, hey, also, you might want to check out our live stream because then when you ask your question in a live stream and we answer it for you live, not only the people watching, but the people who are watching it later, many of those people are going to have the exact same question. So the benefit of this live stream that I'm finding is being able to refer people to come here, watch our past live streams, and then lots of people get the same question answered at the same time, which is fantastic. But I do love getting emails from people too, so definitely feel free to keep doing that. Stacy says hi from Tokyo. Oh, Wayne and Stacy are here in Japan.
Yeah, y'all made it.
Awesome. Glad to see that, Stacy, you made it too. So that's exciting. They are our friends, and they'll be making their way here to Ōmishima eventually, not too far in the future. So enjoy Tokyo. Let us know if you're doing anything exciting today or while you're in Tokyo.
Been using the notebook. Y'all got me.
Nice.
It's covered in honey and beeswax.
Nice to hear from you guys. So I think, let's see, we're about 5 minutes in, so let's go ahead and get started on what we've been doing for the past month. Do you want to start off with your bee update?
Sure, if you want me to.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So since people like numbers with our channel, I decided to try and put together some figures for what we're looking at with our bee operation. And so right now we're at 26 colonies. We actually got we caught a swarm yesterday, and it's a Japanese swarm. So that's
Yay!
yeah. We just put we were given a beehive, a Japanese beehive last year, and they absconded like right away because Japanese bees are very flighty. And so I just put it out next to the guest house because
Well, what happened is I was cleaning the guest house, and as I was going in and out the front door, one single little tiny Japanese bee was very persistently like checking out our eaves and sort of dive bombing me, and just unusual behavior for a honeybee. And so I brought it to Evan's attention, and he acted quickly.
yeah, and so as everyone knows, bees tend to nest in attics and under houses. You know, difficult places to remove, and you have to call an exterminator or better yet, a beekeeper to come out and cut the colony out, and that costs money. So I don't know why I've never heard of just putting a trap there to collect them. And the way it works is you have a little attractant, a chemical. It's actually just a lemongrass oil, and you just put like one drop inside a Ziploc bag and seal it up, and then they're actually able to smell it through the plastic. And old beeswax works really well to attract them too because they're looking for a place that bees have lived before. But so you just stick it there, and they find it and they come in. And so right now we need to find a place to permanently locate them since they're Japanese bees. They can't go with the Western honeybees. They kind of fight.
Yeah, they can't live right next to the guest house, unfortunately.
Yeah. But so we're just gonna find a permanent place for that, and then put another trap right in its place, which we don't have yet, but I'll build it pretty quickly. And yeah, once it's just depending on the geometry of the place. There's places that attract bees, and so once you find one, you just continually keep putting traps there, and you'll catch swarms one after the other, and that's how it works. They don't have to be up in the trees like some people think. This was just on the ground right next to the front door, the north side of the house, so in the shade. But yeah, so that's colony number 26, and so we've got 25 western colonies, and 22 of them are doing really well. The others have, we're still nursing them along. But so of those 22, the average number of frames per colony is 6. So that's getting pretty big. We're ready to put on the supers, put on another box on most of those colonies. And I just went out and checked to see how many frames are harvestable, and that number is 8. So we're going to, after this live stream finishes, we're going to go out and clean up our workshop to get ready for the honey harvest tomorrow, and we're going to be pulling 8 frames of capped honey. And we're hoping that some of that is going to be the sakura, the cherry blossom, but honestly I'm sort of doubtful about that because it's just, sakura is hard to get. And so there's going to be sakura honey in there, but is it going to taste like it? That's the question.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out, we've been talking for a couple of weeks about, how do we, so we've got the timing just right this year, which we didn't know if we were going to be able to do. We've done all these steps to try and harvest the cherry blossom honey that tastes like cherry blossom flowers. But now we still have one more challenge ahead of us, and that is the actual harvest. So as we harvest the honey frames and put them in our spinner, we want to make sure that we're only spinning out cherry blossom honey and not any, regular honey from other flowers that's going to dilute the cherry blossom flavor. So tomorrow is the big day, and I don't know how we're going to do it. I mean, it's not a huge harvest. It's going to be a small batch harvest. So we might just be, taste testing each frame as we go, spinning it out and making sure that it tastes like cherry blossoms. So we don't accidentally dilute it with other flower honey and lose that cherry blossom flavor. So how do you envision it going?
Well, I only have 2 frames marked that could possibly be cherry blossom honey, so we're gonna test those 2. And I guess we have a lot of pickle jars, like 2-gallon pickle jars. So we have a lot of things that we can put them into to keep all the frames separate. So we're gonna try doing that. Yeah, but besides that, Most of what they're getting right now is vetch honey, which is a really tasty honey, but it's common. But and a vetch is like clover or alfalfa, and they're bringing in a lot of honey right now from those plants. So yeah, we have 8 frames to harvest tomorrow, and then 16 that'll be ready in a week or two. So that's really good, and the point being that just this is all a bonus over what's on our business plan. So honestly, that's about the entirety of what we harvested last year. So we're already over our business plan, and we haven't even gotten to what we expect to be the main harvest yet. So
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. We still have a lot of work ahead of us, and we got to make sure we do a lot of things in sequential order and correctly coming up. But we're feeling very hopeful at this point that it's going to be a good year for honey and the guest house. So.
and then the other factoid is that I had my first Suzumebachi sighting on April 18th. So that's going to go in the calendar. We're going to keep track of that going forward. So we have the bottle traps out for the Suzumebachi, the giant hornet, the murder hornets. Yeah, so haven't seen any. If you get any murder hornets at this time of year, it'll be a queen, so that'll take out the entire colony. So that is a good thing to do. We're putting up bottle traps to catch them at the beginning of this year in preparation for the full Suzumebachi season later, when we have to go out and whack them with badminton rackets every day.
I just realized that our live stream might be unlisted, which means I think I might have done something wrong in the settings here. So you keep talking, and I'm gonna see if I can fix something over here. I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so in other news, we've just been working on the garden. I've got plenty of seedlings started, and yeah, I've got all of the little baby seedlings for the trees transplanted out into their individual pots. So I'm at something like 130 quince trees. I think 40 cherries. So yeah, of course, cherry blossoms is the only real problem we have with collecting cherry blossoms, I can figure, is that our colonies just aren't big enough yet. So they have to, since cherries is the first thing they go for, they've got to be really big to get a nice harvest off of them when they first start blooming. And so next year our colonies will be all big and established and much healthier from the get-go coming out of winter. So we'll have that to look forward to. And then I'm also, of course, planting a bunch of cherries, which I mentioned in our last live stream. Go back and watch that if you're interested in, yeah, the English hedgerow with sakura trees. I think it's going to be a real good thing for us going forward.
Okay, I fixed it. So I did have a clerical error there on our live stream. I had the link was it was marked as unlisted, so only people who had found the link that I posted earlier were able to make it for our first 15 minutes. So I apologize for that. We haven't had any hiccups in our live streaming so far, so that's a little speed bump there. Sorry about that. Now it is listed as a public live stream, so
Well, you're doing great overall.
thanks. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry. We've been chatting for about 15 minutes, and we've possibly only been talking to Wayne and Stacy, who are in Tokyo, but
Now look at that. Now everyone's coming.
now we've got more people coming in. So sorry about that, guys. I thought that we were live 15 minutes ago. It was recording, so the first 15 minutes will be in the replay, but it was not a public link. So now we have a public link, and we've got a lot more people joining us. So welcome. Sorry that it's 15 minutes late. We've been chatting, and happy to have y'all here now. Yeah, Stacy, you got a private session. Okay, so
Going on with our event.
yeah, what we've done so far is Evan was doing our state of the bees, our bee report. So you'll have to go back and re-watch that if you're interested in what we've got going on as far as honeybees right now. He just had some math and some numbers that he has reported. So now we'll move over to my part of the report. So the past month, non-bee related, is that we've been continuing garden preparation, and Evan's been doing all of his seedling cultivation. So we've got a small army of seedlings that he's been taking care of. We've been staying fairly busy with the consulting and that side of things. So in the past month, we've done one property tour up in Ōmishima for a potential purchaser. We're in the process of doing 2 translation services for people purchasing property in the area. One of them is almost complete, which is fabulous. They've submitted payment and everything has gone through, and now we're just waiting for them to get the final document in their name. One of them we are in the middle of a lengthier process as they're waiting on some land to transfer over from one kind of land to another. So right now it's just sort of a waiting game on that, but we're very excited for them as well. In that process, we've been the domestic contact for one person too, which is a new regulation for Japanese real estate purchases by foreign buyers. They're required to have a contact within Japan, so we are on file as their domestic contact person, which means if the government needs to get a hold of them and is unable to, they will contact us to also try and reach out to the people. And then we've had 2 consultation calls for people interested in moving to different parts of Japan and doing the startup visa and sort of wanting to talk about their business ideas and our process and how that goes. So we love doing those consultation calls. Honestly, that's really fun. We love hearing people's business ideas and sort of like just talking through with what could work, maybe what to focus on, what to expect with the process. Those are super fun.
One guy wants to start a guitar company here, right?
Yeah, they've got a great
Or
idea.
move his guitar company to Japan.
Yeah. Then moving over to the guest house, April has been by far our busiest month. It's not quite, but almost 2 months of bookings in one up until now. So we're coming up on a year and a half of the guest house running now, and so this month is not only busier than last month during April, but this month is significantly busier than any other month we've had up until this point. So I also did some math because I know people like numbers. In April we are at 70% capacity, so 70% of the nights are booked. Quite a few of those stays are 4, 5, and 6 guests, which is also helpful. And if you factor in that there were 4 nights during the month that I blocked off because I would not have time to clean the guest house that day, we had other priorities going on. If you factor in those 4 blocked nights, then the guest house is actually at 80% capacity, which is
Wow.
That's great. And all of our guests have been amazing. So like every day, it's almost been completely one night stays. So almost every single day, we've been cleaning the guest house and greeting new guests. And I would say this month, most of the guests have really been interested in asking questions about the house, talking about the house and the island, and really chatty, which is fun. So we've met a lot of really nice people on their travels, and gives me an opportunity to be social and meet people. And we've had some of our guests tag us in really cute posts on Instagram with photos from our house and around the island. So it's been an incredibly busy month for the guest house, and just pretty exhausting, but also very rewarding. It's been nice to meet all these people.
And welcome back to Prodigal Inc. Good morning to you as well.
Hello, Prodigal Inc. Always nice to see you here.
And the fact that we're getting a lot of the bigger groups is evidence that this subsidy that we're applying for is going to help us a lot, because
Yes.
the goal of the subsidy is to increase the number of guests we're able to host. Since right now we only have one bathroom, it's not a regulation like it is some places that you have a certain number of bathrooms per guests, but since we only have one bathroom, we don't really feel comfortable hosting more than, we're saying, 6 people right now.
Yeah, it's
But,
just sort of an arbitrary number that we decided but before we opened, as we were going through the renovation and planning. When we were running our guest house in New Orleans, they also had a short-term rental license process, and you could only have so many bedrooms and guests per bathroom in the house. And maybe, I freely admit that maybe that's more of like an American mindset, thinking like, oh, well, because American houses have so many bathrooms, that I just think like, before we opened, when we're walking around the house and saying, how many people can comfortably fit here? How many people in this room, etc. And then we're like, well, one bathroom, and so we just said, well, we're gonna start with 6. That would be 2 people per bedroom, and then we do have another sleeping room that we're using now. But when we first opened, we were using that as an office, and I've since removed that desk, and it's become an additional sleeping space. So our long-term plan has been, well, we're going to add a second toilet room in one of the currently unremodeled rooms. That room will also serve a secondary purpose of being a side exit and sort of pass through to our future barbecue space. And we said at that time our house can comfortably hold 10 people. And so the purpose of the subsidy, like Evan was saying, is to
increase income, basically.
Yeah.
But through hosting more guests, and the fact that we're getting these larger bookings is showing that that's something that will help us.
Yeah, I'd say the majority of the bookings this month are 3 or more, and quite a few 5 and 6. And we're getting requests for 8 and 10, and so it's definitely on the radar. So it's also a good reassurance that people are looking at our listing. I've got tons of photos on there. I've got a floor plan. It's very clear when you look at our listing, the size of our house, and you can just sort of walk through it and envision the space. And the fact that we're getting people requesting already only with 1 toilet room and 1 shower for groups of 8 to 10 to stay there, that's also really reassuring. So,
and we've gotten a couple of we've made some business contacts with people who are trying to start tour businesses here, organizing tours and driving people around from place to place on Ōmishima.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is going to help us, to, be more attractive to opportunities like that.
For sure.
For bringing a big group of people through.
Yeah, which we love to hear. Anytime, we meet people and they're saying, they want to do something on the island that's offering an activity or a service for tourists, that's awesome.
Right, and Prodigal Inc. says, if the renovations boost return on investment, the immigration lawyer will love to hear it.
Yeah.
And it's our business consultant who is putting together this application for us in Japanese and making all those contacts and things, and he is working directly with our lawyer as well. So yeah, they're in contact with each other in addition to just talking to us. And yeah, so it seems like everything is going well on that front.
Our final meeting with our business consultant and the Chamber of Commerce to discuss the application is next week. So we met with him a couple of weeks ago now. Time is all sort of blending together. But his application that he put together for the subsidy is great. Honestly, I'm really impressed with his work. He's made us look very professional. He's got all kinds of like data and statistics in there. I don't think we could have a better application for the small business subsidy. So I am feeling very hopeful. Although it is a little bit, does make me a little bit nervous that the deadline has been pushed back a few times because they didn't have enough applicants, and so the subsidy has not been granted for over a year, and it's usually a seasonal subsidy. So we will have more competition most likely because they've been waiting for enough applicants to come in to do the subsidy this time. So while we have a fantastic application put together by our business consultant, there will also be others asking for the same subsidy. So we shall see. And next week is our final meeting, and then it will be submitted, and then we have to wait, is it 2 months while they
Yeah.
make their decision? So we should know around summertime. Toaster's best friend says, hi, the city town come to you, did the city or town come to you guys for the subsidy, or did you ask them first? It's a subsidy that is offered in the area, and our business consultant found out about it. He said, hey, I think this subsidy might be helpful for your business. It's specifically for someone in your situation as a small business. And so then he, on our behalf, contacted the city to complete the application process.
And it's like the Chamber of Commerce, and it's the Chamber of Commerce for the Shimanami Kaido, which is the whole thing from Ōmishima to Imabari, where we live. So it's a government subsidy, but it's above the level of the city. I think it's national, but it's associated with this local tourism area, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of opportunities out there, which is one of the reasons that we find working so closely with our business consultant very helpful, because he's got all kinds of other clients in all kinds of other fields not related to, the Shimanami Kaido or the guest house or honey. So just in his working, his professional career, he comes across all these opportunities, and then he says, oh, this is a great one for the Bentons, and so he brings that to us. So it's really helpful because we're so busy, we're not connected on the level that a Japanese professional is, and so we probably would never have heard about it otherwise. So that's one benefit of working with a business consultant in addition to our immigration lawyer and our accountant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we had contacted the guy at the Chamber of Commerce beforehand, just independently, but nothing really came of that, so this was sort of just a coincidence.
Yeah, we went in and introduced ourselves shortly after we moved in, just because back in Oregon, I volunteered with the local Chamber of Commerce, who were just super fabulous ladies, and still friends with them. So I thought, okay, well, we're moving to a new country, a new place. So one of the first places we visited was the local Chamber of Commerce, actually. Toaster's best friend says, wow, that's great of him, and thanks for your reply. Yeah, it's I mean, we don't have it yet, so but hopefully if all goes well, it's going to cover not all of the cost, but it would help greatly with not only the bathroom renovation, but the application that we've submitted includes the second toilet room renovation, as well as fixing some drainage issues in front of the house in the driveway that is causing me to not be able to renovate the garage into our retro shop yet, because one time a year the garage gets a couple inches of water in it. And so I am not comfortable doing renovations, and especially moving antiques and vintage items into the garage with the possibility that one time a year it could get a couple inches of water in there. So the subsidy would cover the toilet room renovation as well as some needed drainage issues around the garage, which is going to help our business expand, and then we can turn the garage into our shop for retro items and farm goodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exciting, and that's something we've been working on for a long time behind the scenes, and it's all sort of coming to an end. And then if we get the subsidy, that'll open up a lot more. That'll dictate what we're going to be doing probably for the summer and the fall, is figuring out how to do the renovations that has then been funded and not interfere with our guests coming to the guest house. So that would be probably summer and fall, doing those projects a little bit at a time. So wish us luck, please. The other big thing that we've been working on, I brought some props. The other big thing we've been working on is getting ready for our first food booth at our island's Golden Week Festival. So Evan, you want to tell them about this?
Yeah. So this is might break us, but we're gonna offer food at the Sando market on May 3rd, and we're gonna be offering empanadas
And horchata. So the Sando market is for Children's Day. It's during Golden Week. It's the second busiest day for tourism on the island all year. The other busiest time is New Year's, and then Golden Week is a very close second to the number of Japanese, domestic and foreign tourists coming to Ōmishima. So Wayne and Stacy actually took me to this festival last year, and it was like shoulder to shoulder people walking down the street at the Sando, which is you don't see that on Ōmishima. We've got a lot of festivals and a lot of fun events, but by far this Sando market was the busiest single day event that we've witnessed on Ōmishima. So we are just diving right in, and we chose the busiest market as our first attempt making empanadas.
Yeah.
Sounds hectic. Yeah, it has been a little hectic. It's been stressful getting ready for it, but
I've worked in, kitchens a lot in my life, and I really like cooking, so it's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I'm grateful to Danny for, assisting with that. And it's just, we have a seasonal economy here on Ōmishima. Everything's tourism based, and so most of the time there's not a ton of people except for the cyclists and people you see going, to the tourism spots. But on the few days a year when there's a big festival like this, I look at that and I'm just like, gosh, I wish I had a booth there.
He always says, I wish I had a taco cart. We could be out there selling tacos right now.
Yeah. But so this is just getting to get our feet wet, and if we don't murder each other, then Danny's going to let me do it again.
Yes. If all goes well, we'll do it again on New Year's. So please wish us luck that we both survive this event. So one of the hardest things was getting packaging materials, and you got this, Evan. They will love it. Well, I can tell you that the taste tests of the empanadas and the horchata have gone incredibly well, so I'm not worried at all about what the food tastes like. From his first test batch, they were fantastic, and then he's made 3 or 4 test batches since then, and they just get better each time. So the last test batch we delivered to a few people on the island for their feedback. We got lots of really positive reviews and feedback. Stacy says, you'll do great. Sorry to miss it. Yeah, we wish you guys would be here, but didn't work out this year, but maybe you'll be here for the next one or New Year's. I'm sure you'll be here at some point for it. So, what was I saying? Oh, the packaging.
You got it.
I've got it right here. So, of course, we're trying to not use plastic, and even finding plastic containers was complicated here. You know, just like the real estate, it seems like there's just so many different websites that offered like one thing we wanted, but not everything. We couldn't find a single place that offered everything we wanted. And then I, of course, made it more complicated by saying, well, can we please try to find something not plastic if possible? And that it's just harder to find here. And I don't know if it's just because, you know, the websites are in Japanese, but what I really wanted for our produce at the farmer's market, I started looking into this last year. In the US and other places, you know, you go to a farmer's market and you've got just imagine what you'd pick up some blueberries in or some strawberries. You know, it's the pressed paper berry container, I guess is what you'd call it. That's what I wanted for our tomatoes, and it was so expensive. Any company I found making them in Japan, they were advertising them as like new and you know, like innovative, and I'm like, they're berry containers. Like, it's the most basic, made out of pressed paper. We've just had them in the U.S. forever. So at that time, we figured out the takoyaki boats. So these are just made out of a thin, super thin piece of wood. So of course they're compostable. They're not even wax lined, which can be a problem with recycling or composting materials. So this will be what we serve empanadas in. We did end up going with plastic for the hot sauce container. We're going to have a red and a green salsa that they can choose from. We did go with plastic for this because the non-plastic version was 4 times as expensive.
Stacy and Wayne are going to go be tourists in Tokyo. See y'all later. See you guys when you get here.
Have fun in Tokyo, guys. Oh, and real rural Japan. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Welcome.
We're just talking about getting ready for our first food vendor booth at the big Golden Week Festival here on the island.
Your pitas were delicious, Steve.
Oh my gosh.
Excellent job.
Yes. Oh, Steve sent us a box that fed us for a very long time. Yeah, we got some wonderful handmade pitas sent from Steve that
I wanted to share them with friends, but I did not.
We did not. No, they're already gone. It was many lunch and dinners for us, Steve. Thank you so much. So this is what the empanadas and the sauce will be in, and then the horchata. We really spent a lot of time trying to figure out what size of drink to get, because here in Japan the drinks are just generally served a lot smaller, but horchata, we like it served with ice, and so that takes up precious cup real estate. So we went with a 16-ounce paper cup, and so it's got a lid and a built-in straw in one, and it's kind of a strange design, but it's all paper and you don't have to buy separate lids or straws, and it's like an adult sippy cup. So we'll see how this goes. I just sort of pictured people walking around the festival with this strange looking cup, and then other people saying like, what is that? And being interested and curious. So having a foreign drink in a foreign cup is asking people to do, 2 new things at the same time. They've maybe never had horchata before, and then they've maybe never seen a cup like this before. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think based on what we've seen so far, with our taste tests and talking to people, I think it's going to go really well.
Yeah. You got some more packaging to show too?
Do I? Oh, and then, yeah, I've just made... We really hope that the cherry blossom honey works out because I've been working very hard on my craft project, getting our cute little signs. I wanted just to be very clear that this is cherry blossom honey and not our regular honey. So, assuming that we are successful tomorrow with our cherry blossom harvest, I made this little sign, and it says in English and Japanese, what does cherry blossom honey taste like? It has a delicate light flavor of flower petals. The color is also light golden and soft. And then I explain here, because the price is going to be a little bit higher than our regular citrus honey. So in English and Japanese, I said, cherries bloom early in spring when the bees are still sleepy, making this honey rare and challenging to collect. The cost per jar is a little bit more due to the small batch size. So we are hoping that we have cherry blossom honey as well for the festival. So wish us luck for that tomorrow. Keep us in your thoughts as we're out there harvesting.
And the market is called the Ōmishima Sando Market. Sando is the shrine road, the road to the shrine, and so that's historically been the big draw on Ōmishima Island. Is I always forget the name of the shrine. Oyamazumi Shrine. So it's the road leading from the harbor to the shrine is.
Yeah, I call it Ōmishima's downtown because that's where most of the restaurants and businesses are located. Historically, people would have arrived to the island in a boat.
Can you hear Bosco chewing? I'm sorry, that's. He's nearing the end of his chew toy, so he's gonna start being a terror pretty soon.
Welcome, Bosco, the real star of the show. Punkon's here too. He's on my lap, but he's just being quiet right now.
700 yen for an empanada.
Yeah, 700 yen for an empanada, and then was it 400 or 500 yen for a 16-ounce horchata?
500 yen, I think.
Yeah. Yep, Punkon says, "Hi, Steve." You got a meow in there for him? No. He's
Yeah.
hanging on for dear life.
And of course, the biggest thing with the food booth is just the logistics of it. So we don't have our own commercial kitchen, so we're just having to beg, borrow, and steal everything to pull this event together. And we'll be investing in some portable stuff like coolers that we're borrowing right now to get to where we can do this more in the future. But I do want to show off this thing too that we bought, a vintage Osterizer blender. I think my parents had the exact same model when I was a little kid. So this is gonna make our horchata and sauces. Every kitchen in Mexico has a licuador.
That's why our guest house has a blender, because we came here from Mexico and every single place we stayed had a blender for making margaritas.
Well, not for making salsa.
Well,
for juices, yeah. Horchata.
And margaritas.
But so we are we're renting our friends Ino that have a wild boar hamburger shop.
One of our
in our
favorite
neighborhood.
restaurants on the island is Ino.
So we're using their restaurants. We're renting their restaurant for a couple of evenings since they're only open on the weekends. So I'm really glad to be able to give them a little bit of money since they're a mom and pop joint that's not open every day. And and they're sourcing us some wild boar. We're doing chicken empanadas and wild boar empanadas.
I found out recently that she actually hunts wild boar too.
Oh, does she?
Yeah. She not only has a wild boar restaurant, but she said she is a boar hunter.
Well, dang.
Yeah. FPC Football says, tacos, and taco food truck when? Someday. That is, we actually, you might remember that one of the best pieces of advice that we got was when we were incorporating our business. They said, our business consultant suggested that we dream up just a laundry list of everything we might ever want to do and put that on our incorporation documents of our business, because it's expensive and time consuming to change later on. And so of course, we have food cart, possible restaurant, packaged food. Evan was thinking, tamales or tacos or something like that. So that has always sort of been in our long-term vision. That's why we're growing the peppers and want to make hot sauce and all of that. So at some point, it's like all of our ideas might seem on the surface to be all over the map, but on a long enough time scale, it does sort of make sense, and they all blend together well.
Yeah, it's got artistic vision.
Yeah.
Amy says, I think it's a great choice. Japanese people are not too familiar with Latin food as much as other food.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had a guy just cold call us, who's a Japanese man who lives in Mexico. And he just wanted to come meet us.
He was visiting the islands?
Well, yeah. He lives in Mexico, and so he was back home visiting his family here in Japan. And so he just wanted to come meet us, and he brought his two cousins who run a taco restaurant in Hiroshima. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to connect us, and they were kind of embarrassed because they make Japanese style tacos, which are, I guess, they were worried about the authenticity of their tacos, but
yeah, they were super nice. That's the maybe one of the best, most random phone calls we've ever got. He just asked if he could meet us at the guest house, and did we still have tomatillos growing at that time?
No, that was just a month ago.
It was during the winter? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because we didn't mention this at our last live stream, I don't think. But I think there's a big, just with the military bases, that's a huge market that is untapped for Mexican food here, and then Japanese people just don't know what they're missing, right? So.
Well, and a lot of people say, oh, well, Japanese people are completely unfamiliar with Mexican food, but everyone we've talked to about it seems interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And curious and willing to try.
Tequila is on the upswing here. Oh, and actually, I looked up some statistics, and Japan is I think the number. Well, it varies depending on product, but I think Japan is the number 2 export market for Mexican agricultural goods. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty crazy.
FPC Football says military bases are big business opportunities. I think so too. I looked up the numbers recently. Of course, they've flown out of my head, but the number of foreign people living in Japan on military bases is huge. And of course, we've learned from, Lawrence at Coco Lencho Japan has sent us some American treats from the military base grocery store. So I do know that, the military base people do have access to more American food than we do, but I'm sure there's still things that they can't get, and, I think that's part of our plan with hot sauce is to promote them not only in our area and throughout Japan, but to the military bases and to the foreign people living here in Japan. Steve says, just be careful with coriander because most Japanese hate fresh coriander. Go easy on that and you should be okay.
What's coriander? Do you mean cilantro?
Michael says, you're completely right. The commissaries have limited U.S. food. Oh, really? Interesting. I was just blown away that we actually got a full-size real turkey last Thanksgiving gifted to us from Lawrence at Coco Lencho Japan. Go check out his site. Lawrence and Steve at Real Rural Japan, I like to tease them and call them our YouTube dads, but they're just like two of the best people that we've met on this whole silly Japan YouTube adventure. So Lawrence from Coco Lencho Japan, he surprised us with a whole package of goodies last Thanksgiving from the military base commissary. So we got a Thanksgiving turkey and some. He also brought us some Mexican food and chips and salsa and peppers and stuff. So that was a great present.
Well, Cole S says, hello from Vancouver, Canada. My fiance and I wanted to tune in live and must have got the dates wrong. Yeah. Well, thanks for popping in.
Thanks for, yeah.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time. It is always confusing with the date because we do it at 8 a.m. Japan time, which is usually the previous day for a lot of other parts of the world. So it is, you're not the only one to be confused by it. We chose this time slot because I did a poll and asked people questions about what time would work best for them based on their time zone. But depending on how this goes in the future, we're definitely open to trying out other time slots and seeing how that works for other people.
Yeah, and Michael, you're saying your kids missed very specific foods. Let us know what they missed, and we'll see if we can work those into our offerings in the future.
Yeah. Also, what part of Japan are you in? That's definitely, we could have some questions for you about things that you're missing and.
Yeah, another thing about the event, Danny mentioned the turkey that I cooked. And we gave some of the leftover turkeys to some friends of ours, and then they just messaged us about a week ago saying they wanted me to cook another turkey for their grand opening of their pet hotel on the next island over. And so we tried to get another turkey, but we couldn't, and we're just not gonna be able to do that event too. Because we're just too overbooked, but it's...
Yeah, they didn't know, turkey's a seasonal thing, so they're not even usually in American grocery stores year-round, except for around the holidays, but we had someone go check at the commissary, and they said no turkeys until Thanksgiving, so...
Yeah, I was thinking about doing it, and I was just going to do like a pulled pork or, just barbecue some chicken wings or something like that, but we're just not going to be able to, but hopefully in the future I will be able to do stuff like that, because I really enjoy...
Yeah, I know, and that's my fault. We're too busy. We just have too much going on to try and plan something like that for their business grand opening.
But I just mentioned that because it's just to show you there's a lot of opportunities like that coming up. And Steve wants to know if we're making guacamole. No, but we got two avocado trees. It's going to be a few years before they produce.
Yeah.
And the Mexican or the Japanese guy who lives in Mexico that contacted us, he actually works for an agricultural company, Taki, that Takii, that I guess I don't know how they relate Mexico and Japan, if they grow a lot of stuff to sell here, but. We're going to be buying some Mexican lime trees to put in the ground, and they also sell avocado trees there.
But our avocado trees, we traveled 20 Mexican states when we were house sitters in Mexico, and we chose our favorite avocado. So our avocado trees are a special kind of avocado.
Don't start a turkey business? No,
start a turkey business.
I looked that up too. There's something like, I don't know, there are turkey growers in Japan, but there's, like under 1,000 turkeys, like individual turkeys living in Japan right now. So you get that started, and I'm sure there's a market for you there.
Yeah. I want a couple of turkeys on our chicken farm when we get that part. Hello, Bosco.
Wampa Slap just saw us from the Ziv video. That was a fun interview. So he's in Los Angeles and just bought a house in Yokohama. Any Minpaku advice? Yeah, where to start?
Yeah, lots. We've got a lot of advice for that. We've got a couple videos about that you can go back and watch. I have a blog and at least one blog and video that you can find where I outlined our entire process, our whole renovation and license process. And so we've actually went through the Minpaku license process, and then we also have gone through the ryokan license process, which is what we have and will continue to operate under, which is the full hotel license. So go check out that video and blog. That'll probably answer a lot of your base questions. And my biggest recommendation for the license process is to just hire a professional to help you put the license application together, because it is a bit complicated. So check out that video. That'll answer your initial questions, and then make sure and hire professionals to help you along the way. That will avoid a lot of headache. Dan says, hello from Tochigi. I recently referred someone to your videos about business and visa information. Thank you for being a great resource. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the stream and sharing our videos. Always happy to help and share information. So, I mean, really the reason we started this channel was because when we were trying to get here and we were researching the startup visa and the business manager visa, we were scouring the internet and we couldn't find anyone with a small business like ours that we could reach out to and talk to and, see their success story, or, even just say, hey, these people did it. So the reason we started this channel was, as we went through the process, we thought, well, somebody's got to be that resource. And, other people have done this. Actually, it turns out now we know only 350 people have done it, but so we're one of 350 people who successfully completed the startup visa to business manager visa process. I thought it was a lot more than that, but turns out there were only 700 startup visas given, or Bosco stole my cup. Buddy. Anyways, there were only 700 people who received a startup visa, and of those 700, only 350 went on to successfully achieve the business manager visa after that. So that's part of the reason that I couldn't find any success stories, is because out of only 350, and I'm sure a lot of those are much bigger businesses or different kinds of businesses. Not very many have probably done it just as two people with a small business and big dreams like us.
Cole has some questions. Let's answer before he pops out. He says,
Okay.
Do you need a farm status to have chickens? No.
Well, we haven't looked into the chicken and
we
egg
haven't looked into the
production yet.
chicken, but you don't need farm status. I think it's like a zoning thing. You might have to live in the countryside. There might be local ordinances that prevent you from owning keeping chickens in the city. When we spent a month in Imabari City, which is the city proper, when we first
I
moved
gotta
here,
get this cup from him.
we saw chickens in the city, so I don't think that's an issue. If you live somewhere like Yokohama, it might be, but I can't speak to that. So basically, the answer to your question, to my knowledge, is no. And then, do you mainly use credit cards or cash for house renovation / Airbnb maintenance purchases? Anybody?
That's complicated.
Yeah, we paid our contractor in cash for the things that we hired him for, and then all of our consumables, right, are credit card purchases.
So we are still using our American credit card for some purchases and then reimbursing ourselves. Part of that reason is that we don't have a Japanese debit or credit card yet. So we have a Japanese personal bank account and we have a Japanese business bank account, but it is cash only at this point. And I don't remember why. It's just been complicated to even get a debit card. So for things that we need to purchase online, it adds a level of complication because we are using an American card to ship to a Japanese address. And part of that is just because, well, we've been here 2 years and we've figured out how to do it this way, and it's just the way that we're continuing to operate for the time being. But at some point, yeah, we need to at least get a Japanese debit card from our bank account. But most people do want to deal in cash or bank transfers, which are super common here. So we pay our accountant and our business consultant monthly. You go down to the ATM and you do just a bank transfer directly from your account to theirs at the ATM. It's something that I don't think you can do that in the US. I've never really heard of it. It's a feature that Japanese ATMs have, and so even some people who purchased honey from us last year when we were shipping honey throughout Japan, we would get paid by bank transfer directly to our business bank account. So that is one way that we're able to pay people without having a debit or credit card associated with our Japanese bank accounts.
Usually there's a fee involved.
Usually there is if it's a different bank, there is a small fee involved, or also if you do it on like a Saturday or something, there's a fee. But a lot of people in our area use the same bank as us, so then there's no fee. I see we've got a lot of questions coming in. So what else do we have?
Michael Scoble. I know of only one other small business owner that has this type of information you do, and it isn't in this kind of depth. Thank you. Did you also get forest land? Yeah, we did. We have one plot of forest land that we own, and it was formerly. So the issue you probably have heard of if you're asking these questions is that it's really hard for a foreigner to buy farmland because you have to have a farmer's license, and Real Rural Japan has a lot more information on this because we haven't.
Yeah, check out Real Rural Japan's Patreon page. He's got all kinds of information about how to get the farmer's license and how to purchase farmland. So Steve with Real Rural Japan is a great resource for that, more so than ourselves.
Yeah, but we do have one plot of forest land, and it's not actually forest. It's just a field that had been converted to forest land before we bought it. And they do that so that it's easier to sell it. But anyway, that's where our honeybees are. So there's no forest maintenance there. But on another bee yard, we do have some forest land adjoining it that we don't own, and it's abandoned basically. And I am looking into seeing how I can purchase that to maintain it, etc.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that we did a consultation for this month, he is thinking about doing something as a business, doing some sort of a forestry.
Forest related. Now, one other interesting thing going on with our real estate translation client. So one person, I don't want to give their information, so none of this will have any identifying details, but he's purchasing a house that had some attached farmland, and the reason that the process is taking a lot longer than a regular real estate transaction is that they are going through the process of converting the farmland into forest land, which is much easier for a foreigner to purchase. And that's oftentimes, he has no intention of farming here, so that's the correct way to go about doing things, is to have the land change from farmland to forest land and then purchase. So that way you don't have any hiccups or issues or potential problems for the seller or the real estate agent.
Steve doesn't have a credit card. Going back to the questions. Yeah.
And somebody said, so it's like a wire transfer. Yeah, it's like a wire transfer, but it's directly from the ATM.
And if you're able to get a postal bank account, you can get a debit card with that account. And that's probably true. It's sort of on the back burner for us, since we're making do with what we have right now. But some friends of ours have a postal bank account, and they were able to get their credit card and an ETC card through that.
Yeah.
ETC is it's like the QR whatever radio activated card that you use to pay the tolls and things like that. So that would be super handy because the ETC system is the way that we use it right now is pretty clunky. But it'd be good to look into that, but we haven't yet.
Yeah, you're not the first who's mentioned a Japan Post bank account, and I didn't know for a long time that they offer that service. But we have a local, I think the bank is just in Ehime Prefecture, so our bank is EO Bank. And we're really happy we have an account with them because we're become friends and we have a great working relationship with the bank manager, and he's helped us with with a lot of things business related. So it's good to be able to have that local manager contact. I think that, we're working on getting a small loan from the bank to do some repairs on the garage roof. And so I think, if we didn't have the local manager and that sort of connection, I think that would be a lot more difficult for foreigners to go through.
Brunson Smith has a pretty straightforward question. Considering the startup visa, if my business sells products, can I actively be selling that product during the startup visa process? Basically, can you make money during the startup visa process? And yes, and that's a very good idea to be able to show income during that time. And there's just going to be some issues like having your business account, your business bank account, and your business incorporation, and any kind of licenses that you have. You're going to make sure that those are all in place. But if you have another business, like for example in your home country that you're already selling through, and you can just show that you're transferring that business to Japan, that's a really good way to do it. And then beyond that, you're just going to want to talk to an immigration lawyer to get the details on that.
Yeah, for sure. So it is, yes, it's beneficial to be actively selling that product during the startup visa process. So after you receive the startup visa and you have your 6 months or a year or whatever it is that they're going to be changing it to during the course of 2025, whatever the new startup visa package looks like once it's fully rolled out and implemented, if you are allowed to make an income during that time after your business has been incorporated and your bank account has been opened and your business has been funded. So even though it's during the startup visa period, you are legally allowed to and encouraged to make income during that time. That's going to make your extension application to business manager visa more palatable for the immigration officer who's reading your paperwork and determining whether or not you have a viable business. So if you already have income to point to and prove that you are on your way to earning an income in Japan and supporting yourself and your business being productive, that's just going to help you look better with each visa renewal.
Yeah, and then Steve's got some good points about farmland here. Yeah, I don't want to get too into that, but again, just check out his channel and his Patreon if you're interested in that process.
He says you can build on forest land, 2 years to get his farmland signed over. Most farmland can't be changed over. It has to be in bad condition and pass criteria for it to be reclassified. Yeah, this particular instance that it's going to be turned from farmland into forest land, it actually had an illegally built structure on it. And so that is going to help their case to convert the farmland to forest land and then have that poorly and illegally built structure that is not the main house torn down. So it is apparently a high number of illegally built structures on this island on farmland. So it's something that local purchasers in our area might run into, but that might not be as much, nationwide. It might just be like a part of our little microclimate here.
Yeah, Marcus made it. That's Marcus, right?
Hey Marcus, nice to see you.
Welcome. This is a loaded question from Amy. Oh, it just disappeared.
Where'd it go?
Hold on.
There we go.
How are contractors in Japan different from the ones in the States? This is the topic. This is our main topic for the month, right? So
yeah, it is past 9:00. It's almost 9:15. So this is So we're supposed to be talking about our main topic now, which is renovation. So let's
Well, so we only hired a contractor in New Orleans to do the subfloor. Mm-hmm. The floor joists needed replaced. Sistered a few of them, and so. Well, and then we had rats in the attic, and they had to replace
hired a contractor for that.
Hire the contractor for replacing the insulation in our attic. So here's the way it works in America, okay? You say, hey, guy, I want you to replace the insulation in my attic. He says, okay. He measures your attic. He says, it's going to cost this much. And he might say, I've got a couple different tiers of goodness for how much it's going to cost. And you say, okay, I want to do that one. And then maybe you'll say, this one option here, that's too much money. I don't want to pay for that option, so take that off. And he says, okay, here's an adjusted quote. Here it is. And then he does the thing, and then you pay. And sometimes it costs more than you. Sometimes it's like, well, there was some overruns, and you're gonna have to pay a little bit more. And you say, okay, well, that was in the contract. I forgot to mention, you signed a contract beforehand, right? In Japan, if you say, hey, guy, I want you to build a wall, he says, okay, how much do you want to pay? And you don't know, because you don't know how much walls cost. And you say, how much? And you say, well, can you give me an idea of how much that would cost? And he says, no. How much do you want to pay? And so basically there's this word in Japanese, makaseru, leave it to me. And that's what it all comes down to. And so we've talked to other people who've ran into this too before, where they'll say, hey, I'm thinking about having my screen doors replaced. Would you mind coming over and take a look at my screen doors? And he says, okay. And and you don't set a time or date to meet or anything, but he just comes over one day and replaces your screen doors and gives you a bill. And you say, what? I mean, we didn't talk about this. I said I was thinking about it, and you just did it. And so that's how they're different, basically.
That's a bit of an exaggeration.
Steve, Steve's here.
Tell everyone you're being a little sarcastic.
Steve, am I being sarcastic? Is anything I'm saying at all an exaggeration? There's huge cultural differences between the way that businesses are operated here and the way that they're operated in the United States.
Yeah, the biggest shock to me is just that we could not get a
estimate. Yeah.
We couldn't get an estimate with line items. So we could get an estimate for the whole project, but then we couldn't say, well, wait a minute, how much is it going to be if we take out like this part, or what if we adjust this part? Because the quote was just like, this is how much, but there was no like, this is how much for this part, and this is how much for this part, and this is how much for this part. So there was no like,
Steve says I'm right. Thank you, Steve.
Steve says, I worked as a roof contractor here in Japan as a laborer, and Evan is right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It do be like that.
Yeah, it is. There is definitely, let's just say, cultural differences in the way that contractors work. Marcus says, I mean, even from what I saw, just saying, LOL. Yeah, yeah. Marcus met some friends of ours when he was here visiting.
I mean, and they do great work. Let's be honest. I think that Japanese construction is really high quality. And the labor costs are a lot lower than what we're used to in the United States. That's a nice difference. FPC Football says, get to know your handy neighbors, and it only costs you beer, cigarettes, and food. I'm the handy neighbor. Yeah.
All right.
But we don't need to beat that dead horse any longer. Those are some of the key differences between contractors in the United States and in Japan.
Clear as mud. Yeah, Steve. So Jacob has a question for the business manager visa. Jump back to that real quick, and then we will jump over to the main topic of renovation. So Jacob says, hi, how does the mandatory office space requirement for business manager visa look in your case? I read it can't be in the same place as residence. And before I answer that, I will say that the new 2025 startup to business manager visa might be changing the office requirement. So I am not certain if our experience will be the same as your experience moving forward. So please take that into consideration. When we got the startup to business manager visa, You are correct. The business office cannot be located in the same address as your residence. And in fact, so we own two properties. We own our guest house, and then we have the house that we live in, which is where we are right now. And one room of our guest house that is not accessible to guests, and it has its own separate outdoor entrance, is our business office address. So we have a desk in there and some chairs, and that is our legal business office. We're also required to pay rent for the business office each month. So we have a lease between ourselves, who own our guest house, and our business, and the business pays rent to ourselves, a very small rent,
Like a boss guy.
each month. Our business pays rent to ourselves each month in order to rent that office space, and that meets the legal requirement because this address is our residence and the guest house is our guest house plus our separate business office. Does that answer your question? I think a lot of people get around that just by, there are often small office spaces that you can rent. I think even here on the island there are office spaces available to rent if we didn't have this sort of situation where we own two properties. So rent is actually really reasonable in Japan. I don't know if it's just our area. Like monthly rentals for housing, apartments, not only apartments, but actual houses and also offices, can be just a few hundred US dollars equivalent a month. So, living expenses can be really reasonable here. You've got a lot of tax and you've got a lot of other fees and things to consider, but rent and purchase for property prices can be pretty reasonable compared to other places. FPC Football says, so all the money you bill yourselves and pay yourselves just kind of stays in one big circle? Sort of, yeah. Like we try to keep it that way. Yeah, so the business pays Evan a salary each month and then rent for the office. And then also we pay the utilities with cash each month, and then we get reimbursed for that, and then that money we are able to put back into our business. The end goal is to keep things as separate as possible, so anytime we put money back into our business, it does have to be considered like a loan or an invoice or a loan, and then it's sort of complicated. It is sort of like a big loop, but our accountant is the one who keeps us all on track for that, and he is tracking everything. So everything is documented and taken into consideration. So it is not the kind of accounting that I personally would be able to do myself.
When looking for a home and office properties, was it difficult to find places close to each other?
Not in our case.
Yeah, not in our case, not at all. It's hard. There's so many abandoned houses here. It's difficult to find them, on the market. But in our case, no, our two houses are a 2-minute walk from each other.
Yeah, when we first found this house, we were considering a different property that's literally across the street for our guest house. So when it came down to actually purchasing two properties, we had 3 to choose from that we really liked online. And that's only the ones that were listed. There's dozens of other abandoned houses just in our neighborhood. And then probably thousands just on this island. But so in the end, we decided against the property that was directly across the street, and we went with the guest house, which was just around the corner. So In our instance, no, it was not difficult to find multiple properties close to each other. In other areas, it's hard to say because we don't have experience in any other part of Japan, so not sure. Toaster's best friend says, do you have to maintain 5 million yen all the time? Ideally,
Yes.
yes. We do not currently have the 5 million yen in our business bank account. They do count business assets towards the 5 million yen. And we have actually, our business bank account has gotten to the point where we had to send some money over from our personal account to build it back up. And so that's considered a loan from ourselves to our business that I was talking about a little earlier. But each year when it comes to submitting our visa application, which hopefully will not be each year in the future, hopefully we're going to get a longer visa, but they do check and take into account that a combination of our business account plus our business assets equals a minimum of 5 million yen. And the challenge with that is, of course, that, you know, the value of things goes down each year. So if you have business assets, they're not going to necessarily maintain that same value and count for as much towards your mandatory minimum 5 million yen each year.
Depreciated, Michael Scoble. Yeah.
Ah, yes. Michael says business assets count. Are they actual cost or depreciated?
Yeah, and so the idea is it's not just you're making a 5 million yen investment and then you can live here. The idea is that you have a business which is valued at 5 million yen, and that justifies your ability to live here.
Michael says thanks. Prodigal Inc. says, do you guys have to pay income tax in the U.S. still? I will find that out before May 20th. This will be, I filed an extension for this year because I will be doing our U.S. taxes myself, and Louisiana state taxes aren't due until May 15th, not 20th. That's your birthday. So federal taxes, of course, are due April 15th. Louisiana state taxes aren't due until May 15th, and so I filed an extension with federal, and I'm giving myself until May 15th to file our U.S. taxes, and I will be figuring that out for the first time. So this will be our first time filing taxes that we actually had an income in Japan. So I've been doing some reading about it, and I will be asking some other foreigners living in Japan for advice who also do their own taxes, and I'll be figuring that out in the next few weeks. So this is our first time attempting that, so I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look. Prodigal Link says keep us informed. Yes, I will definitely be giving an update at some point, so wish us luck. Some people say it's not that bad, and some people say they don't. So I don't really know. I don't really know what to expect. I'm prepared for the worst, but I'm hoping for the best. Let's see. Toaster's best friend says, hope things go well for you guys. Thank you. Thank you, me too. So let's see. It's 9:30. We've got 30 minutes left, and we're out of questions currently. So we can hop over to, I made some notes here about renovation is supposed to be our topic this month. So I made some notes about the, everybody's talking about the April 2025 changes to construction and renovation requirements. So I thought I would give a little update about that. We touched on this briefly in the last live stream, but since then I found out a little more information, so I thought this might be helpful information for some of you guys if you haven't heard of this already. So in April 2025, Japan made revisions to two different laws. One is the Building Standards Law, and one is the Building Energy Efficiency Law. And it the reason it's going to affect a lot of us is that it has to do with wooden structures, and specifically wooden buildings built prior to the modern law standards, which is almost certainly, Akiya's older houses that we are so fond of. So formerly, 1 or 2 story wooden buildings less than 200 square meters were sort of grandfathered in and didn't need to meet certain building codes during renovation. They're changing it now, so 1 story less than 200 square meters still is the same, but 1 story larger than 200 square meters and all 2-story wooden buildings will now require a permit for certain renovation. Well, what does that mean? It was unclear at first. They've sort of cleared it up and said that they'll need a renovation permit if modifications to the structure affect more than 50% of the primary structural components. That includes walls, columns, floors, beams, roof, stairs, and general floor plan. So if you purchase a house and you plan to do extensive renovations, changing the floor plan, moving walls around, that sort of thing, and it affects more than 50% of the primary structural components, then you're going to need to file a permit for renovation. And what's the potential problem with that? I would say mostly just headache. It doesn't sound like they're trying to stop people from renovating these houses. It just sounds like, it's becoming more bureaucratic. So you'll have to file paperwork, including potentially detailed structure and energy efficiency reports. You'll have to file an application for your permit, which may involve hiring an architect or other professionals to draft things up for you. And of course, cost for hiring those professionals just for the paperwork component, and also time, because things in Japan tend to move a lot slower. Bless you. So, bless you. Any thoughts on that?
That sounds like that could get really expensive.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's so it sounds to me like correct me if I'm wrong here, but right now they have a problem with a lot of empty houses in Japan. And one of the reasons that they have this problem with empty houses is because of all these regulations. And it sounds to me like they've tried to solve the problem of the empty houses by increasing the regulations. And am I reading that correctly?
That's sort of how I'm seeing it. Yeah. It's an interesting choice, considering other government responses to trying to solve the abandoned house issue. It seems like some of the recent regulations in the last few years have made things easier, and some of them have potentially made them more complicated, challenging, and costly. So Michael says, I wonder if by structural components they mean load-bearing or all walls. I read that it means all walls. So they said if you're tearing up the floor, walls, columns, floors, beams, roof, stairs, and floor plan general changes. So to me, I didn't read the actual law regulation, but to me it does sound like modifications affecting more than 50% of the primary structural components. So Steve says it's because they reassess the value and can change more taxes, which is based on home value. That's definitely...
Yeah, so they're going to reassess the value of your home when you do the renovations, or they're going to force you to report the renovations in greater detail, which gives them a better opportunity to reassess the value of the home. I guess so.
And this is FPC Football says make you renovate or tear it down, I guess. And then Marcus says, well, there are those houses where you can't rebuild. And that's true too. We haven't seen any of those in our area, but there are some houses that explicitly say non-rebuildable, which means you cannot tear the house down and build a new structure on that property. I don't know how or why certain properties are zoned like that as non-rebuildable, but that is something that some of you might come across at some point. So, yeah, in which case your only choice would be to renovate. And then if you're renovating more than 50% of the primary structural components, then you would have no choice but to, of course, file for these permits and meet the new regulations. FPC Football says maybe a cultural heritage area. I don't think so.
It's the whole country.
It's everywhere. It's the whole country. And Michael says supporting the building trades rather than reducing the abandoned homes. Yeah, and paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork here, and now there could potentially be a lot more.
Yeah, well, as FPC Football says, make you renovate or tear down, right? And so, yeah, if it's harder to renovate, then that makes it easier it doesn't make it easier to tear down, but if it's a choice between renovating and tearing it down and the renovation becomes harder, then, it's just a cost-benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm. Steve says my friend has a no knockdown and he is renovating. Steve, did he make it in before having to meet the new requirements, or does he have to get a permit for that, or is he changing less than 50%? Michael says some are access limited, others were illegally built. Yeah, there's a lot of that too. FPC Football says, how's that Japan digitizing going? Yeah.
Yuck.
We'll see. Michael says, fax the paperwork in. Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly. So it's interesting. And so we were thinking about it, and we don't think these regulations would have affected our guest house renovation, even though that is a 2-story wooden structure that is grandfathered into the old system. But however, it might affect our house renovation whenever we get the funds and time to do our own house renovation. It very well could affect our plan here, although maybe not, because I was reading online that what they're saying is one potential way to avoid having to do the permits is to not do all of your renovations at one time. But that they said that the government would be looking very closely at that as well. So we don't want to be encouraging people to do anything that is skirting legality. But they said that if you did too many renovations in a row within a certain time period, that it could still be considered one big renovation, and then you would be required to get the permit. So that's down the road for us, but we do have a large 2-story wooden structure here, so we're definitely, if we plan to change more than 50% of this house, we may fall under the new regulations.
Yeah, and something that we're gonna see going forward in Japan is just they're gonna not be able to fulfill their services. They're not gonna be able to support these outlying communities like we live in because the number of people, the money coming into the government is shrinking. The ability of the government to provide services is not going to be able to keep up with the need for those services. And we're already seeing that here. I'm sure anyone who lives in other rural communities like Steve is seeing that kind of stuff, and that's only going to get worse. So how is this going to be enforced? I don't really see that happening. But we'll see.
But we'll see. I mean, it's a new regulation. I'm sure they're going to be keeping an eye on things. And
one thing's for sure is that they need money because again, the ratio of people with the ratio of workers to retired people, is only going to, is that decrease or increase? Anyway, the number of workers per supporting every retired person, every pensioner is just going to decrease. So, yeah.
Mark says hi from Vancouver, Canada. Van City.
Van City.
How's that pixelated orca doing? What's their hockey team?
Canucks.
Go Canucks. Huh. Steve says that Japan probably doesn't want to fill all those houses. That's definitely a possibility as well.
Follow Steve for spicy takes.
Yeah.
Danny doesn't let me get as spicy as I'd like to on this channel, but Steve does. So
Yeah, realistic. Steve's always got some real talk. Real rural Japan. Real talk Japan, Steve.
Mark's going for the new business manager visa. Tell us in the comments what your plans are there, Mark. I'd like to hear about it.
He's waiting for the new business manager visa to open nationwide. That's exciting.
Yeah, we did hear just a little bit of scuttlebutt from one of our friends who does work with the business manager visa stuff. And he said one thing to think about with the business manager going nationwide is that since it's being dictated from the top down, there's a very real possibility that since all of these little municipalities and prefectures are having to implement it, and they're just being told to whether they want to or not, there's a very good chance that they just won't have the resources to do so or the inclination. And so that's going to be something to look at on a case-by-case basis, depending on where you're applying.
Yeah, it's just hearsay, but he said he actually heard of a few municipalities pushing back against being forced to implement the startup visa. So it could be very, very interesting to see how this plays out over the course of the year.
Yeah, and I mean, so your application might just end up in the round file. And if you don't hear back from someone, you might just want to move on to another place. But that's, again, it's hearsay.
That's hearsay, and we're going to see how it goes over the year. But please keep in touch. I'm really curious to see how this plays out for people, particularly people who are applying for areas that have not previously offered the startup visa. So I'm probably getting this question almost daily at this point. So as you go through the process, please let me know. I'm happy to take that information and compile it with what other people are letting us know, so then we can share it with everybody else. So
Mark wants to open a secondhand store in the Kobe area. That's a very interesting idea, Mark.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if there's a big market for secondhand stuff in Japan, because there's all of these chains like Hard Off and what's the other one we go to?
Second Street.
I think that since you're in Vancouver, we've thought a lot about bringing Japanese goods to North America.
Yeah, he's talking about also export back to Canada.
Okay.
Yes.
Now
we
are
on the same page with this idea. I don't think that we will ever be able to do anything like this, but I think it's a fabulous idea to bring Canadian goods to Japan and then bring Japanese goods to Canada. I think it's just a great idea, honestly. And I don't know anything about Kobe specifically. Where is it that we went for one night?
Matsuyama.
Matsuyama, yeah. We went to Matsuyama for your JLPT test, and we were walking around, and there was one district that had a couple of thrift stores there, and one of them was an unmanned thrift store. It was just there was 5 different prices for each piece of clothes based on the color tag, and then you pay a machine and leave, and there's just cameras everywhere. That was weird. I got a cute sweater there though. And then we went to another one where it was all like American 90s clothes, and the owner was there, nice Japanese guy, spoke a little bit of English, and he said that he goes to Los Angeles personally to thrift all of the items that he then brings back to his thrift store, which would be so much fun. Like that would be awesome. But I know thrift store prices in the U.S. are like getting out of control. Like even going to Goodwill is like you're gonna be spending.
This was 8,000 yen on Mercari, and they were going for 15,000 or 20,000 yen. So,
Is that good or bad?
well, I'm just telling you for prices.
Just for information.
Yeah.
Yeah, old CRT TVs and video games. Yes, absolutely. Save all the CRTs. I mean, there's some things that we're at the point of right now that once they're all thrown in the landfill because most people don't think they're valuable anymore, we're never going to get those back. So, anytime you see a CRT TV, even if you're just going to save it and use and sell for parts, those things aren't being produced anymore. The parts to repair working CRTs, and it's not just for TVs and old video games, but it's for arcade games too. The CRT consoles for some of those arcade games, they're not manufacturing those parts anymore, and so the price for the parts is only going to increase as people just keep chucking them into the garbage and into the landfill. So yeah, whoever said that, who said that? Mark from Vancouver. Yes, we're totally on the same page.
And Amy's gonna bring stuff from the United States to sell at 2nd Street next time she visits Japan.
Oh, good idea. Yeah. That's actually the only place I've been able to find shoes that are in my size that I like. So I've gotten a couple good pairs of Converse and Vans from 2nd Street, and every time I find them, I'm like, are these shoes from foreigners? Like, are these, like, they're in Imabari, where there's very, very few foreigners, but that's the only place that I've been able to find shoes is 2nd Street, and so I'm wondering if that's just from people bringing them in from overseas. Let's see. Marcus says there's a long-standing place in Melbourne that has been doing kimono dining homewares. Like from Japan, obviously from Japan, bringing them into Melbourne. Toaster's best friend says back in 2014, when I did my study abroad in Yamagata, another student from the U.S. shipped home every few months 2 big boxes of old game stuff from the U.S. Yeah, big market for that. In fact, we were contacted by a friend of mine recently. We grew up in a small town in rural Oregon, and now there's at least one really cool vintage video game store that I just found out about on social media. We haven't been back to our hometown in many years, of course. And there's another one opening, and a friend of ours contacted us and said, hey, would you be able to source Japanese games, because we want to open a retro game shop and have an international section. So we might be helping them out, get some retro Japanese games sent to small town Oregon for a new video game shop opening there. Marcus says, oh, can you sell stuff to 2nd Street? Yeah.
As a non-resident?
Oh, as a non-resident? Oh.
I don't know.
Probably. That's a good question.
I think Amy's a Japanese citizen.
Yeah. Marcus, the next time we go there, I'll try and find out. We do actually need to go there soon because I'm running out of pants. I need to get some new pants. I just ripped my paint pants, which I loved. So now I don't have any pants to wear to paint in anymore. So we've got to make a run to 2nd Street and Off House and get some clothes for us soon.
FPC in Oita and reclaiming abandoned farmland for co-ops and such.
Interesting.
Retro goods there. Maybe do a combine it with rice farming. Yeah, if you can find farmers to help, you know, you might be able to do something like we were thinking about doing, where you're bringing people in from overseas and giving them a visa to work on your farmland. But yeah.
Time for Toby pantsu. Are those cool pants that he bought? Did you see those cool pants that Marcus bought? They're the work pants.
Oh yeah, the big Sultan pants,
Yeah.
harem pants.
Yeah. Steve says customers are dying off for retro stuff and getting onto pensions. Well, you know what? I don't believe you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna make that point. Yeah, I don't know. I've been looking into collectibles for a long time, like ever since I got into cryptocurrencies and other, other investment things. I think collectibles are a great investment. However, yes, the number of people in the world is decreasing, and it's not projected to increase for in our lifetimes. So the supply is for everything, everything, for real estate, for money, for collectibles, for entertainment, for food. The supply of everything is rapidly outpacing demand, and it's going to be like this for the foreseeable future. So what does that do for prices? We'll see. I think we're going to get to the point where stuff is going to really gonna plummet very soon, and all that stuff is going to be a buyer's market. So
Steve says my face lights up when we talk about retro stuff. I can't wait to have our shop.
Yeah, and that's the appeal again, And I think I don't know. Maybe we're looking at the birth of a new aristocracy, where the people who held on to the VHS tapes, are the guys. I mean, we believe that all of these things. We believe that all of these digital things have value, but yeah, when people's face lights up, I mean.
Betamax, rise up.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so we, since we've been living out of suitcases for like 3 years now, 4 years, I don't know, since we lived in Mexico, since 2022, I guess. And so I had a ton of books. I still have a ton of books, but I haven't seen them, in like 3 years. And so everything I read is on a little e-reader. And I have a really hard time just remembering what the title of the book that I'm reading is, or who the author is, because when I pick it up, I just hit a button and it just shows the page that I was reading on. Whereas since you don't have a physical copy of the thing, you just don't have the reinforcement of those memory pathways. And we were talking about going to the Blockbuster, the video rental store, like when everything you're doing is downloaded, and you talk about a movie you watched last week, and you're like, what was the name of that movie? Who was in that movie? Whereas if you're going to the video rental store,
you don't have the tangible, like, tactile, visual component of actually, like, picking something up, and smelling it, and seeing, like, the colors, and, like, getting it ingrained in your brain in a different way.
Yeah, and I mean, AI with, again, I don't know, people talk about, speciation. People talk about just, like, people, like, groups of people just splitting to the point where they can no longer interact with each other, And, I mean, I don't know to what extent that is true, but we're looking at a thing where you have certain people who are really into AI and just think that AI is this amazing kind of product, and you have people over here who are talking about, like, vintage goods.
Steve's just being Steve.
Okay, so we can let Steve be Steve in the corner over there. Well, but so that is definitely true. I mean, but in terms of the market, I mean, we're just gonna have to see how this all plays out in the future. I mean, yeah, I would say if I wouldn't fork out like $30,000 for a Black Lotus at this point in time, or I wouldn't spend very much money on VHS at this point in time. But if you're in a situation where you can find this stuff for a reasonable price, I would definitely,
Yeah. And Michael says, if you don't have a physical copy, you may not really own it. I was just talking yesterday. I just heard from a friend who was just brought up in conversation. Yeah, I knew this guy who he had a questionably offensive screen name, and so he got like booted, and all of the digital copies of every game that he owned, he lost access to. So every game that he purchased digitally, he could no longer lose access to because somebody reported him for his screen name. So if you don't actually own a game or a piece of media or a book, if you don't have a physical copy, I 100% believe you don't actually own it. It can be taken away at any time. So Curtis laughed at Black Lotus. Where have you been hiding? Have you been here Black Lotus?
Yeah.
FEC Football says, yeah, seeing the movie poster for 4 months in the theater before it came out. Yeah. Remember going to the theater?
Yeah, and I mean, you'd get a record, and the record would have singles, right, and the whole
Yeah, the
promotional
liner
deal.
notes and reading all the lyric sheets.
Well, yeah, and Marcus talks about DVDs, and I remember in the 90s, I remember people talking about CDs and saying, CDs don't last. The thing like delaminates and comes apart, and but since we moved to Japan, we've been buying CDs, and I had forgotten how terrible MP3s are sound quality wise. Because I've been trying to live like a minimalistic life for the past like 2 decades, and getting rid of all this stuff and just listening to stuff on YouTube. And like when Danny and I first started dating, I would show her I would want to play some song for her and I would find it on YouTube, and I would just be like, listen to this part right here when the drums come in or whatever, and it just would not sound very good, and I'd be like, yeah, it doesn't sound that good, and it's because MP3 is a very lossy format, right?
I can't grab the whole stack, but we've been collecting CDs every time we go to thrift stores.
But the sound is so much better. I mean, I just love it when I'm in the workshop. Like, it makes me feel feelings, and it's just so amazing. And yeah, liner notes. Looking at the lyrics, song lyrics. But I remember I worked at Yellowstone National Park for a summer, and there were a bunch of students from Eastern Europe that would come in and work there. And I remember talking about MP3s. And I remember one guy said that he liked MP3s better than CDs because you could hear the vocals better, and that's true. The way that the algorithm works with converting the file format into an MP3 is it boosts the mids so that you can hear the vocals more clearly at the expense of the treble and the bass. Yeah.
Who doesn't want a whole booklet?
But so I mean, Spotify, like, I can't imagine paying for a streaming service that streams a low quality audio file. It's just nuts. And then again, like, to the point of demand, what does that do for the demand? What does it do when your whole customer base just doesn't care, doesn't know any better, has lived their entire life listening to only MP3s?
Well, yeah, it's a little off topic about Japan, but when you're talking about physical media, retro goods, that sort of thing, that's right up our alley.
But it's right at the heart of what we're doing with, like, authenticity, finding an old house and fixing it up
and filling it with only actual old things. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that guests comment on when they walk in, because we do greet every guest personally. So they're allowed to arrive and check in whenever they want. But then we schedule a time to come over, and I've got to do the check-in and take their passport documentation and all of that. And then I also just give them a tour of the house, just to show them at the very least how the hot water works, how the shower works, and how the heaters work. But most people, when I'm walking them around, they have all kinds of questions about the stuff in the house and the renovation and that sort of thing. And people are really, really, really receptive to there being like actual era appropriate old things in the house. And it's because it's not something that you see as much anymore. And it's great for me because I love collecting those kinds of things, and I love sharing them with other people. And then I think, when people see them, then they think, oh, maybe I want something that's made out of metal instead of a new version that's made out of plastic. Like, that was pretty cool. It is really neat when you pick up that calculator and it weighs 20 pounds instead of like being on my phone. I don't know. We're getting off topic, and we've got 3 minutes left.
Yeah,
So.
but maybe we're increasing the demand with our little business here. I think, and maybe the YouTube channel is increasing the demand for kind of stuff like this. Steve's got some ABBA LPs.
Japanese ABBA.
Please.
Got them out of a house I was demolishing. Wow.
I mean, anything.
Michael says waiting for someone to make the show me the money joke. Wah wah.
This is a no Tom Cruise household.
Alright, guys. Well, this was sort of fun. Off-topic segue. Thanks so much. We are open to ideas for upcoming month topics. So if you've got any ideas, feel free to either let us know now or send them at some point in the next 2 weeks. I like to get our topic planned 2 weeks ahead of time so I can get the thumbnail up and get things ready. So in 2 weeks, I'll be planning next month's live stream topic. So thanks for joining us. This was a particularly fun month. Thanks for talking. Pongkan says thank you. Math nerd joke here. Look who got off the tangent. Ha ha.
Her.
Ha ha ha. Alright guys, well, this was a good one. Let us know your ideas for next month, any topic you're particularly interested in. Anything's on the table, so we're always happy to talk about whatever it is that you would like to join us talking about. So, thanks guys. This was fun. We'll see you next month, alright?
Alright, y'all.
Oh, and wish us luck for honey harvest tomorrow. So our next video is probably going to be this cherry blossom honey. Whether or not we're successful, we've been documenting the whole thing. So we didn't have time to get a video out this week. So I'm hoping that next week our next video will be our cherry blossom honey video. So hopefully we are successful, but we'll share the video either way.
Alright. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Toaster's best friend.
Thanks
Michael.
Steve. Thanks Marcus.
Thanks, Prodigal Inc. Thanks, Brunson. Thanks, Curtis.
Yep. Thanks, Amy. All right, guys. See you next time.